Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Mind interview series where we talk to regular people just like you who are doing their best to be their best every day. And I could not be more excited to be here with Brian von Ancken, who is not only the founder of one of my favorite communities, period, full stop, ever, but also a founder of a couple other things in addition to being a wellness guru, I like to say, and a dad to little Luca. So we'll kind of touch on all of these things. But before we do that, Brian, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story. What brought you here today to talk about mental fitness?
Yeah, it's a long and winding road as we all have, and I couldn't have figured it out if I tried to figure it out backwards, it wouldn't make sense. But basically, the way that I like to say it is, I started out living the should life. Like I did, I was the all-American kid. I got good grades. I played football in college. I was kind of like on a path. I was going to go to law. I went to law school, and I was like doing what was expected of me, and then just kind of through life, as it happens to all of us, ended up going through some setbacks that, yeah, just kind of made me rethink whether I was living life for other people's expectations or for my own. And, I ended up doing a 15-year career in the wellness space, starting at Tough Mudder, going to my own company, then Othership, then at Barry's. And all along, I've just really believed in the fact that taking care of ourselves is not just about physical health. It's also not just about mental health. It's kind of a blend of all these different aspects of wellness that I've tried to embody in myself. And I've tried to be a part of my purpose in life, which is to try to make all this wellness sort of stuff more accessible to people and be a bridge to talk about it in a matter of fact way, in a science backed way, and in a way that is like fun and interesting.
I love it. And I'm curious. So, we're going to touch on a whole bunch of this stuff. I love how you say this wellness stuff because I feel like that's what it feels like. It's this huge category that a lot of people don't necessarily know how to define that encompasses both mind and body. So, we'll talk about that in a second. But before we do that, can you tell us a little bit more about these setbacks? I think a lot of times people hear that and they're like, oh, this guy, he's like, running, I like to say, one of the hottest communities on the internet, like whatever. But now that you've dedicated your life to wellness, yeah, like what was it that kind of led you into this space more specifically?
Yeah, so I married my college sweetheart, and we were trying to have a family and experienced multiple miscarriages, and ended up getting divorced. And that was just something that broke my brain in a way that I just had friends. I was like kind of that typical guy's guy, and that I had friends who would take a bullet for me, but I didn't know how to tell them that I wasn't okay. And I don't fault anybody for that. It's just kind of how I was brought up. Suck it up, tough it out, and I think there's value to that sort of stuff. But by going through that, I ended up taking some time off. I traveled. I got really into a bunch of different modalities like breath work and men's work. And I actually did a silent retreat after only meditating for 15 minutes. I'd only meditated for 15 minutes, and I did a week long silent retreat, which was pretty intense. But I just kind of took a lot of time to get introspective and to start to understand, okay, what is it that I really want? How are the ways that we as a species have taken care of ourselves so that we're not just living in fight or flight, we're not just living in our brains, we're not just living in kind of the way that we're expected to. And it took work, and I put some time in, and then that led to me to becoming really passionate about all these different aspects of wellness, be it physical health, which is super important, but the mental side of it, the meditation, the breath work, kind of visualization, and then the emotional side of it, understanding emotions, being like, okay, I used to be the type of guy who was like, I didn't cry, or I didn't, anger. I wasn't allowed to express anger. And like, the way that I look at emotions is that emotions are just like sneezes. Like we all just need to be okay with feeling them, and we need to release them. And if we don't, then you feel kind of weird if you hold a sneeze in, right? So all this sort of stuff is something that I've been really working hard at to better understand, get slightly better at. And that's what's kind of led me to what I'm doing today, which is just helping a ton of different companies who are in the wellness space grow and get better at what they do and help more people become healthier and live happier lives.
Wow, wow, wow. There's so many different little threads there I want to pull. The first is, can you talk about men's work? We haven't had anyone on the chat talk about that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a term that can mean a lot of different things to different people. People can imagine shirtless guys screaming in the woods and doing weird stuff, but I think really what it comes down to is my interpretation of it is guys intentionally getting together to support each other and to grow in their ability to understand their emotions, understand how they're feeling, and feel permission within a group of other guys to feel those feelings, explore those feelings, and just to be able to have a space. So the way that I do it is I'm in a men's group, which is just a group of 6 to 8 guys. We meet weekly. It used to be in person. Now it's virtually. And it's just a space where we all have time to, it's not your typical Zoom call. It's not like we just, it's, I think there's a big difference between men's work and therapy. Like therapy is beautiful, but a lot of that is cerebral, where you say, hey, this is something that's happening to me and this is why it happened, and it's very heady. And my experience of men's work is something that's actually much more somatically based. It's based in your body. And so what you try to do is, instead of getting into story, you just actually feel what's going on. So if you're somebody who's, something just happened and you're really angry about it, we encourage you in this group, this safe space of men, like, hey, connect with that fear, or connect with that anger rather. Where do you feel it? Oh, you feel it in your hands? Cool. Breathe into your hands. Sounds weird, but really what we're operating in is in the world of the subconscious. So really what we do in 90% of our days, the everyday person, is all in their head, but we're kind of just dumb animals. And so we might think the head's driving the bus, but really the dumb animals and the subconscious is what's driving the bus. And so being able to speak to the subconscious, being able to give the subconscious a space to do what it needs to do in order to feel safe is a really important thing, because a lot of us, there's kind of two types of nervous systems. There's fight or flight and rest and digest, and every human has two of them. And what ends up happening is it feels like a lot of us are ultimately in the fight or flight unknowingly quite a lot of the time, right? You get cut off in traffic and you're like, oh, you get freaked out. And it's not about that one thing that happened. It's about the state that you're in and previous things that have happened to you. And that's not to say that like you have to have gone through something terrible. It's just like modern life is hard, and you kind of, this plaque. I think about it as like plaque that builds up in your subconscious. And what men's work ends up being is a space where you can kind of, okay, I can speak to the subconscious, I can feel the things I need to feel, I can let go, I can kind of get back to that rest and digest, and I can just be able to be more present in my life, so I'm not as activated by all the things that happen. Does that make sense? Is that a good answer
Totally.
for men's
I
work?
love
Okay.
it. And my friend calls it eyebrows down work. It's like the stuff where you're kind of like paying a little less attention about the stories, like you kept saying, like running in your head, and a lot more to what your body's telling you you need and what you need to
Yeah.
feel, which is super cool. And I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about the company that you built? And I'm wondering if that is related to this in any way.
Yeah, do you mean the first company I built?
First one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so my first company, which didn't go great, but I'm more proud of than almost anything, is called Anchor. And my whole hypothesis was, I really believed in all this holistic health stuff, but I was being really realistic. I was like, listen, people are not going to spend time doing breath work and meditation. Keep in mind, this was like 7, 8 years ago, so that wasn't a crazy thing to say. And so what I thought was that if we took a workout, which I think a lot of people do find the time to do, and we infused breath work, meditation, vulnerable group sharing, we would be able to create something that I was going to call like a total health workout, where you're not just exercising your muscles, you're also exercising your mind, your subconscious, you're feeling social connection. And so I created this whole new thing called Anchor, and we were running events in New York, and it was a 50-minute boot camp class, and you were sweating and you were like, imagine one of the things we would do is we would have like a theme of every class, like it could be resilience, and we'd ask you these questions, and like, so we would then ask you to share during class. So imagine like holding a squat for 60 seconds and then sharing with somebody else, like, what's the time you're most proud that you were resilient? And you're like, I don't know, and it's just like, it's playful too. You're not trying to go too deep, you're not trying to get, but it created this really unique experience where people were like, there's like a runner's high when after you like run, it was like that times like 10. Like people were saying, wow, just this feeling I have after an Anchor class, it was like so next level. And so we were doing great, we were in the city, and then COVID hit. We ended up having to create a community online, which I offered for free for a very long time. We helped a lot of people in a really dark period, and it just like became this, like, everybody had their little pocket of community. And I think we built something that I was really proud of. But then what I really ran into was, I realized that building in the wellness space is hard, and it's not easy to create a thriving business profitably. And if you're not making money, you're not going to be around, and you can't do the good work. And so I became really passionate about trying to help wellness companies like the one that I built become profitable and be able to be sustainable.
Super cool. And we had actually met during that time in your life, which I felt really lucky about. And so we share the desire to help bring the mind and body together in the most efficient way possible in these workouts, which is super cool. Now, I'm curious, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about your mental fitness journey since then and how it's evolved. So obviously we kind of heard how you got interested in wellness, but ever since, let's say, COVID, like what do you do personally and how has your life shifted with those routines?
Yeah. So I don't know about anyone else, but it is overwhelming to think about all the things you could do or should do when it comes to taking care of your health. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things that we run up against as an industry right now is that people are confused, they're overwhelmed, there's too much they can do. There's not enough time in the day, right? Like if you were to just spend your day being healthy, you could wake up at 5 a.m. and you could do your workout and you could meditate and you could cold plunge and you could sauna and you could, stretch and you could do all these things. And then like you wouldn't have any time to do anything else. And so because a lot of us just have to live normal lives, I became really passionate about like how do I make this doable and accessible for myself. And the way that I look at it is quarterly. So rather than saying this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, rather than saying this is what I'm going to do forever for a year, I found that once a quarter is a nice time frame for me to kind of set realistic goals. And so every quarter it kind of changes, right? So I've had times where meditation was a really important part that I wanted to do every morning. I try to do at least one thing a morning during those quarters, whether it's meditation, might be breath work. I liked morning pages for a while. Sometimes it's just doing a visualization. I mean, it kind of changes depending on circumstance. Like I just became a dad. And so the time that I have to do it is limited. But what I do every morning is I have this amazing 2-minute morning meditation that's like motivational that I listen to before I start work. And it just puts me in that right mindset to get to work. But it's really changed over time. I mean, I've had long ones, I've had shorter ones. I think that the biggest thing that I learned over time, though, is not to beat myself up. Like I could have beat myself up. Oh, I didn't do it today. Oh, I suck. Or like, oh, mine's not good enough. There's other people's who do more. And it's just like my relationship to it was one of the most important things that I've worked on over time so that I just peace with it. And then I also know that every quarter I'll revisit. I'll be like, okay, well, what is the other thing that I want to do? And I kind of have a whole quarterly review audit system that I do, not just for the mental side of things, but also for my business, for my relationship, that sort of thing. And it doesn't take long. It's not like I don't try to make it crazy, but I think it's important to have times of reflection in our life so that we can make sure we're not just on autopilot doing the things that we're serving past versions of ourselves.
Very cool. This is going to be my next question, which is like, what are like the two tactical things you do on a regular basis? And it sounds like this quarterly reflection are really big. It sounds like right now these like 2-minute inspirational kind of meditations are big. Can you talk a little bit more actually about the inspirational meditation? I'm curious, like, is it the same every day? Is it
Yeah.
you
So,
speaking?
we talked about subconscious earlier. Like I am trying to reprogram or I don't love that word. I'm just trying to talk to my subconscious every day and remind it that there's just a lot of things that are said in that, there's one of the things that I really love is in that mode of meditation is both faith and fear require you to believe in something you cannot see. So you might as well choose faith, which I love because I think it's so easy to choose fear every day. But that's imaginary, just as imaginary as faith. Imaginary, but like it's like I find that that's a nice reminder, and it's also a reminder that like I can like if you want to do something you can do it, and so I mean I think somebody who were to listen to it for the first time I'd be like, oh, these are just platitudes. I've heard these before, but there's something about the constant reinforcement of them that eventually seeps into your subconscious that I believe then is the driver of your decisions that add up over time. And so that's how I'm thinking about it.
I love that. That's great. I used to have a mantra. It was trust and patience. And the word patience I never loved. And then I was working with someone at one point and they pointed out it's because patience means you're waiting for something to happen. Whereas faith means it's a belief that you're like exactly where you're supposed to be. And so trust and faith has been one of my
Ooh,
go-tos for a long time.
love that.
So that really resonates.
I love that.
Super cool. Okay. And by the way, is that spoken in your own voice or is it somebody else who's speaking this?
So I've gone through a phase where I recorded myself and like in a closet and like read stuff and I didn't like that. I just it
Yeah.
just felt weird. So I found one that I can send to you. It's just like it's on Insight Timer. It's free. It's
Cool.
great. And yeah, but I think there's value maybe to it, but it didn't really work for me. I was just like listening to myself. I was like, ugh. Even this podcast, I'm sure if I listen to it later, I'll be like, ugh, my voice. Come on. I didn't know it was that pitch. So
That's good. Well, okay. Well, we'd love to put that in the show notes. It's very cool.
perfect.
I'm curious, like, so now you're in the space. Well, tell us a little bit more about the community I keep hyping because it's one that I'm a part of and I'm super careful about my time and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And then I have some more questions for you.
So the long story short is, as I said, I built my first company, didn't work out. And I think it was because I really didn't understand all the things it takes to grow a wellness company. You can't just put money into Facebook and expect to have a profitable company. You need to know SEO, podcasting, events, paid, like there's just a million things that you need to understand in order to grow. And what I found is that I didn't know enough about it. And so I became really passionate about learning about it. And what I ended up doing is meeting great people like Lissy and all these other people who had some experience in one aspect of it. And I decided to get them together. And what started as just informally, a couple of us a couple of years ago has grown into what's called the Wellness Growth Mastermind. And this is a community of over 200 founders and leaders in the wellness space who we get together and we chat about what it takes to grow. That means a lot of different things. For some people, it's fundraising. For some people, it's podcasts. For some people, it's partnerships. Like what I try to do is we have these monthly meetings where we have a theme, we bring in an expert. And my big thing is I believe that if you bring a lot of people together who are everybody in the group is three things. They're accomplished, kind, and generous. And if you put enough of those people together in one room, like great things happen, serendipity happens. And I think there's a lot of people in this industry who are kind of very much like focus, okay, I'm just a fitness person. So I'm just going to talk to fitness people, or I'm just a mental fitness side or a mental wellness. And I'm just whatever. And it's like, no, the game has changed. And wellness is a broad term. And the consumer is expecting everybody to kind of be talking to each other because we all want more than just one dimension of wellness. And so the group is a space that comes together and supports each other to grow. We've got big businesses, we've got Aura, 8 Sleep, LMNT, we've got representatives from the big brands, but we've also got a lot of people who are up and coming as well. And I think that's a beautiful combination because it's like there's a lot of things that young companies know that the bigger companies don't, and vice versa. And I think what's really nice is I try to make sure everybody in the group is just like, just kind of like, I think the people who are attracted to work in this space are here not just to do well financially, but they're here to do good. And when you get those types of people in the same room and you're like, wow, these are my people, like great things happen. And it's been really cool to be able to build this like organically. You talk about patience. This has been a long time that I've been building this. And so it's very, very cool to see where it is now. And I'm excited to keep growing it and see where it goes from
I love it. Well, congratulations. Like I said, it's such a special group. I am curious, you've mentioned this a couple times now, this definition of wellness. It's like this very big thing. How do you define wellness?
Yeah. So to me, I'm not very rigid. So I've got like a definition and then I've got some wiggle room on the edges, right? So to me, I definitely see there's pillars, right? There's, kind of the apps of the world, whatever you're trying to do. There's the physical spaces of the world, whether you're trying to help people physically get more fit or mentally get more fit or just congregate intentionally. I feel like that counts. And then there's all the wearables. There's a lot of really cool wearables out there that help you understand your health even more. And I also like have some retreat centers in the group that are up and coming, building new things. Longevity could be a part of the group. So to me, I'm less interested in boxing anything in. What I am interested though is like we are not the traditional healthcare system. So if you're part of the traditional healthcare system, you're getting covered by insurance. That's not this group. If you're like I kind of see us as like the up and comers. Like I kind of like that us versus them of like we're trying to make the world healthier. And by the way, we have our hands tied behind our back because it's not covered by insurance. And we don't have the traditional industry. So it's like, that's kind of how I view it. And I kind of like I just let in somebody in the group, which is very unlike me, but like there's a woman who's creating healthy dog treats. And I'm like, dogs. I don't know but like that she's the right type of person. She gets it. She's got a great background. She's doing it for the right reason. She sees the value of healthier dogs leading, and it's like, great, cool. Like, I think that type of person. So I try to do it on a case by case basis, but the definition is changing every day. And I don't claim I'm trying to just like ride with it as kind of people define it more broadly.
Totally. And I'm curious, so that's how you describe the space. How would you describe like the practice of wellness?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a personal choice, right? What I've found is that if you should people into anything, you're going to get the exact opposite of what you want. And so the way that I look at wellness is an accepted and wanted state of mind towards healthier decisions, which can give you the opportunity to live a more energized, happy, and longer life. That's what I would say it is. And it is very much a decision that cannot be made by somebody else. It has to be made by you. And that's why I get really excited by things that can crack the door open for people to start thinking in that way. And that's the stuff that I think is so needed in this wellness world because there's so much serving, I want to get on my watch and I want to get on my ring. And like these people need to be served and it's valuable, but there's so many people that just need to be brought in to the conversation. And I think that needs to be done via meeting people where they're at. It has to be done via just like making it fun, making it easy, and just not shaming people into being like, well, you don't care about your health, so you suck.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. I once heard someone say that you have to go through like a big life moment in order to engage in this kind of stuff. What do you think about that?
Sadly, there's quite a lot of data to support that. I think that that tends to be the wake up that is needed to take autonomy and ownership around what's going on, because the reality is that life is busy and the work required to start thinking about this sort of thing is takes energy. And if you've got kids and if you've got a job and you've got stuff going on, like, you need a pattern interrupt in order for you to take the time. But I still maintain that 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 doesn't need to be a prerequisite. It can be done if you don't have it. It just, we need to find ways to give people the jump starts, right? So whether that's a vacation that involves education and some sort of reset, whether it's an intentional, you know, dad's time away, you know what I mean? Like, so it's gonna take, everybody is reaching a breaking point in this modern world, in my opinion. And the question is like, are you going to reach the full breaking point where everything falls apart, things go terribly, or are you going to kind of see the early warning signs and then have an easy way for you to start to mitigate? And it's a personal choice. It's so much easier to just numb and scroll. And I don't blame anybody for doing that because it's so easy. But I could see societally, if we start to value this more, then we have a real chance to start to turn the tide. Because then once things become normal, I was talking about this today. I was like, I was talking to my dad, and he was like, how the heck are, like, he wants to eat less sugar. He's like, how do I eat less sugar? It's just everywhere. It'd be impossible. And you think about everybody in the world, how would we eat less sugar? And it's like, I wonder if this conversation was being had about smoking, 50 years ago, right? How do we smoke less?
Yeah,
Everybody smokes. It's so good, and it's not to say it's going to happen overnight, but then the slow kind of norm changes that can happen over time is ultimately what's going to put people in a position to be able to make long-term change. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
it does. It does. And I think it's really interesting because what popped into my mind is BJ Fogg has a book called Tiny Habits. And he's a behavioral researcher. And he says there's only three ways to change your behaviors. Like one is an epiphany, which is kind of what we're talking about. Two is these tiny steps. And then three is changing your environment. You actually touched on all three of those in this. And I think the sugar thing's really interesting. That's like a topic in itself. I just did a sugar cleanse for 30 days. But I had before that been like slowly but surely removing like different elements of carbs and sugar from my diet for health reasons. So it was an epiphany that led me to my small steps, right? That led me to change my environment. But there's like a whole bunch of different things you need usually to change your behavior. But when it comes to addictive substances, I always say like cigarettes or sugar, you tend to need a bigger jump start.
100%. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not easy.
no,
Like, one of the big things that I'm also secretly doing in my group is I find it really important for the people who work in this industry to practice what they preach to some degree. I see so many
totally.
founders and so many people who get burnt out and don't take care of themselves, and I understand. I've been there. I was that founder who, I was not taking care of myself, and it's so easy to do. But I would love this group to also be a space where people feel supported to take care of themselves, and they feel supported to realize that the challenges they're facing are not necessarily, they're not the only ones, they're not alone, and that, like, there's a big network of people who have very healthy things that can help them take better care of themselves. And so that's one of my things I really care about this group too.
I love that. That's great. It sounds like you're practicing these things too. I have one more personal question before we get into our rapid fire.
Yes.
So, how has your approach to, we'll call it wellness more generally, obviously we talk a lot about mental fitness here, but I want to actually zoom out to wellness, changed when you became a dad?
Yeah, so I've got a little 9-month old named Luca, and it's I've always wanted to be a dad, and I'm so excited to be a dad. And there's been a couple changes. The first thing is, um, the first 6 months just kind of feel like a blur and feels hard to. It was survival mode, and I did what I could, and that is just kind of. it's not a space where I could have sustainably done 4 workouts a week and meditated. That's just not, if I wanted to be the supportive dad that's important to me to be. However, now that there's some stabilization here, yeah, I've been able to really carve time out of my workday to work out and to do yoga. So my routine specifically is I do one boot camp class a week, I do one Pilates class a week, I do one yoga class a week, and I play basketball once a week. And then I do the morning meditation type thing. That's all I do. And it's not, I don't try to do any more than that. I try to turn off at 5 o'clock if I can to be with my son, pick him up from daycare. But I think that more broadly, what's changed is I experience more joy and more fulfillment and presentness by having a kid, and I'm just in the moment playing with him, right? So we're playing, we're throwing the ball around, and it's like I'm being satiated in this way that I don't think I was before a kid. And so I just like, I think there's a narrative that's like, oh, you have a kid and like everything goes to hell, and it's like, yes, but then there's some aspects that actually really get dialed up in terms of your well-being, your sense of purpose. I'm like singing way more. I used to love to sing, and I'm like coming up with weird songs and singing with him, and it's like, so there's creativity, there's presentness, so there's all these things that are naturally happening. And then there's some areas like, taking care of my mental fitness and being able to take care of my physical fitness that I need to be a little bit more intentional about. Yeah, that's kind of how I'm solving it for now, but we'll see next quarter. It could change.
I love it. And I think it's really cool that you do the resets on a quarterly basis. There's all this like new year, new me kind of stuff. And then there's the anti who's like, you could start new every day. And sometimes it's actually just nice to have something incremental in between, which is super cool. I love it. Okay. Quick set of rapid fire questions before we wrap up here. So, first things first, what is like the best book, podcast, person that you've listened to, read about on the topic of mental fitness and or wellness?
That's a great question. I like Mark Champagne. I think he's good. I think that I'm going to go with an oddball though. There's this guy, John O'Connor, who is, he's a coach. He coaches CEOs. He doesn't have his own podcast, but he's been on different podcasts. And I think that the way that he looks at the world, the way that he thinks about psyches, and he's a former, his parents were all New York City cops, and he was a body worker. He did body work for like celebrities and all different people. And he just like learned the body, and that allowed him to be like a really good coach. And I think he has such a unique perspective on just in general. So yeah, I'm happy to share some of his stuff with you.
Amazing. We love that. I'm super intrigued. One of my favorite wellness experts also started with like body work and then went into the mental side of things, which is very cool. Okay, next up is, what is one piece of life advice, a quote, something that you're living by these days on a regular basis?
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, yeah, every quarter has a little. I'm laughing because like I'm a little embarrassed to say mine. But it's like, so my mantra is I have the juice. I don't know what that means, but I'm like, I got the juice, and I'm gonna be the best dad. Basically, I got the juice, and I dad without fear. That's what it is. So I got the juice. Like I can make things happen. I got the juice, and I dad without fear, which is important to me. So those are my two mantras. But like my broader mantra is, know yourself and have fun. That's the big thing that I say. It's like, know yourself and have fun. That's something that I really try to live.
That's so big. I love it. One of my favorite things these days, my dad always says, enjoy the ride.
Yeah,
So
that's
reminds me
great.
of that. Super cool. And I like how short these are, by the way. I think a lot of people try to like memorize quotes or think like these have to be these like big, long things. I love that. I've got the juice. That's going to stick with me too. So thank you so much, BBA, for that. That's
Yeah.
great. Okay. I want you to think about yourself before you kind of went through this like very big period of transformation. What advice or what would you have tried to say to you before you went through this to try to get you excited to learn a little bit more about the things that you practice and do right now to take care of yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm somebody, I just love sports, and I love that aspect of the world that played sports. And so I think what I would try to do is like point to athletes who are taking care of themselves more holistically, that, like the Kevin Loves of the world, who is like, NBA basketball player, but like honest about some of his mental health challenges. But I think I honestly, I would more talk to, there's a couple NBA players NFL players who like really swear by this certain diet or by breath work or by visualization. And I think like, I think the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary is actually like a great example of like how visualization can be really powerful. And like, so I would just try to like meet that person where they're at in terms of like, these are the types of people who you look up to, and then remove the stigma. And then I would just like give them a really low, easy yoga class or breath work or something like just to try so that you can kind of crack the door open. Even if it's a hybrid type workout class that like does working out, but also does some mindfulness stuff. Like, I think that's what I would say to someone who was like me, because I think it's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to say anything to change someone's mind, but you can do is like point to some stuff and then be very specific about it. Like, hey, come with me to this thing because Kevin Love does it or whatever.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like you need something like a little gentle introduction as opposed to like a smack across the face of like, this is what you need to do. And I think that's what most of us need, those little steps. So very cool. Really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the group, given this particular topic or that's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the big thing that I have learned is how important it is to follow the fun and how important it is to try to remove the pressure from the fun, right? And so, like, if you have an idea, can you do it in a really low stakes way where you just start it out and you don't put financial pressure on it? And you just kind of like let it exist and you trust. I mean, basically, the most powerful thing in the universe is compound interest. Isn't that a quote? But it's like,
Yeah.
if you stick with something long enough, I don't consider myself a rocket scientist, but I've been doing this for 2.5 years and I stuck with it. I did it every month and I followed up with people. And like over time, I'm starting to see the dividends of this. And so if you can play the long game and if you can slowly build something, even if it's not your vocation, believing in yourself that you can do that, it just takes small steps to start. So just encouraging people to follow the fun and, you know, take some chances.
I love it. That's great. Follow the fun. All right. So where can people follow you? Where can people
Yeah.
find you?
I'm mostly on LinkedIn. Brian Von Ancken, very fun last name, hard to spell. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. And then the website for the group, which is the Wellness Growth Mastermind. It's joinwgm.com. So you go there, follow me on LinkedIn, or you could always email me. I'm just Brian at joinwgm.com. I really love meeting and talking to new.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Everyone, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Modern Mind. We are thrilled to have you here. We will put everything in the show notes. And Brian, I will see you at our next meeting.
Sounds great.